Now, here's a theme that never grows cold, always dear to young and old, the sweetest story ever told, a coach for Cinderella.
I suppose you've heard about that huzzy Mrs. Webb spider. No, but I'm listening. Well, far be it from me to gossip, but it seems that only last night, Mr. Webb spider... No, yes.
fly in to test the air that lies within a coach for Cinderella.
Heads up down there.
The bluebirds fly in circles wide, weaving their way from side to side, forming the drapes that help provide the gown for Cinderella. Borrowed from another day, now we present in full array the coach for Cinderella, the coach for Cinderella.
At me. I beg your pardon? Well, we shall see. Here he comes now. Cinderella must be home by midnight, or she'll lose her gown, her slippers, her coach, everything.
If we could only stop the hussy.
I've got it. The old witch in the forest.
That's it. The witch.
On with the dance. known for my witchcraft wherever I go. At such times as this, my minions take flight to torment the traveler who rides in the night. I'm always in an ugly mood. I love to poison people's food. I'm bad, as you may well conclude. I even hate myself.
But we spread happiness each day as we go on our merry way. We help to make this life more gay. We love everything, except that.
Say, Mamie, who's taking you to the Hass and Pfeffer Hop? What? That cheap lettuce lizard? Buck's taking me. And can that bunny strut? Woo woo! Kid, he's the carrots. Hold the line, dearie. Wait till I get rid of this pest. What's eating you, buddy? Where's the fire?
Woodland Messenger Service?
only happy when I'm spreading gloom. My goal is destruction and ultimate doom. There, my pretty one. You won't fail me. Poison people's food. I'm bad, as you may well conclude. I even hate myself.
Dear Lord of all gnomes, dear Lord of all gnomes and horsehoppers too, please hear this prayer we send to you. Won't you try with all your might to keep Cinderella safe tonight? 'Cause we spread happiness each day as we go on our merry way. We help to make this life more gay. We love everything, except that.
I was saying last night, Cinderella, will you marry me?
I'm sorry, Your Highness. I can't. I have no dowry.
But what more dowry could I wish for than you, my love? And the coach.
Sailor just come from Hong Kong to me way. I blow the man down. If you give me some silver, I'll sing you a song. Oh, give me some time to blow the man down. Behind the 8 ball, I first take my time to me way. I blow the man down.
Behind the 8 ball, he has wasted his prime. Oh, give him some time to blow the man down.
Wise guy, huh?
Tinkers and tailors and soldiers and all. Me way. I blow the man down. That's one good sailor behind the 8 ball. Oh, give him some time to blow the man down.
15 hairs and a dead man's chest.
Many brave hearts lie asleep in the hills of night. Be
Calling all pirates, calling all pirates. Calling all pirates, ship off board, calling all pirates.
Come on, baby, kids, get dressed. We're going to have company.
I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna do it.
You will? And you like it?
All right, I will. But I won't like it.
Or the decoy. Shut up, you brat. Help a poor mother and a little child. Pipe down. To the rescue!
They fell for it. All right. Ball strike one.
Now I can buy me a purple shirt with pearl buttons.
Afraid not.
Swipe them up.
Why, that dirty crook. Getting so you can't trust anyone these days.
More than $1 million. Oh, shucks. There's more than 1,000, I betcha. But how can we take it with us? I've been a bad boy. I should have listened to my mother. But gosh, how can we get home?
Worry, 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 worry.
I got it.
Come on, the sailors, girls, you know. Yo home, my lads, yo home, yo home. There's none like Nancy Lee and Joe. Yo home, my lads, yo home.
Once or twice upon a time, there was a king who ran this classified ad in the local town crier. Be it known all the land where the king holds sway, that at the king's palace at sundown today, His Majesty offers his daughter's fair hand to the wealthiest suitor in all the land.
We the people voices must raise against Alakazam and his wily ways.
A jewel to him is a grain of sand.
That wicked old wizard will win her hand.
Alakazam! They don't like me, the dogs.
This Alakazam might be public luck number one, but it's hard to see how he can lose. Being a magic wizard, all he has to do is wave his wand like a swing band leader in the groove and zingo. There's a gunny sack full of jewels.
Jewels and stuff. Oh gosh, look at the diamonds and pearls.
With talent like that, the king figures this is one game where a low diamond takes a queen. He's willing to nominate Alakazam's son-in-law and let him make a vanishing act out of the castle mortgage.
You will learn to love me, my little pigeon.
So it's Alakazam leading in the backstretch, Alakazam at the post, Alakazam all the way, but wait a minute.
Another.
Ooh, another.
Who's this dark horse coming up? Why, this guy's our hero. It looks like Dan Cupid's got a half Nelson on him. And I'm the princess, too. But what chance has true love got against hot and cold running diamonds in every room?
Oh gosh, what you got? Jewels? Oh yeah. Oh, throw them out, gosh. Look at that. Hot diggity.
And in those days, the king's word was law. Well, it's always darkest just before the milk wagon. Right now, things look coal black for our hero. But presto, another magician.
Nicky Gnome at your service.
I love the princess, but I have no jewels, and so I can't win her as Majesty rules. A valley of jewels? But how will I go?
Well, just you watch me, and soon you will know.
Didn't I tell you to take magic to put that Alakazam on the spot marked X? All you do is relax on that. Hi-ho, linoleum, away! What a spot for a 21 jewel forced landing. Is this what they mean by being a couple of jumps ahead of the sheriff? Meanwhile, the villain is tuning in on his crystal ball.
Oh, spirit of the crystal, will you confess? The beautiful princess, she loves me, yes. The beautiful princess, she loves you. No. Look again.
Alakazam, you got diamonds galore. The pauper boy's got plenty more. Jeepers creepers, how you like that? Where's my hat, my wand, my Gladstone? Somebody saddle my magic vulture. Down, Cuthbert.
Open the door.
It's a good thing he's just renting the place. Hopper in Flight 6 calling Baghdad. Calling Baghdad. Hello, Dad. Sailing unlimited. Visibility just peachy. But he shouldn't be detouring through any rainbows to get himself all dolled up. Not when there's a tough citizen heading his way with unkind thoughts. Hey, kid, snap out of it. Alakazam's on the muscle, and here he comes. Sideswipe, by gosh. And now the beans are spilled for sure. But Nicky Gnome's a wood butcher, too. He does a little cabinet work. Alakazam must be a hard guy to live with. It seems he's been throwing a couple of smokers and has handed out some cheap stogies. The smoke just about has our hero down. And Nicky gets the air conditioning system going just in time to save the referee from counting 10. Alakazam is so plus nonplussed at the way things are going that he forgets to dot his I's. Alakazam is going to stop this guy, but how? A good beating will keep the moths out of any rug, but our hero takes an awful dusting, too. So Nicky comes back with a couple of new twists to spring on the villain. Now it seems that the villain's bald-headed buzzard is saving string to feather a nest. So here is our hero, down and out, but definitely down, yeah, but not out. He knows a few ways to score that aren't in the rule book. So he pulls some high-tension abracadabra that leaves Alakazam somewhere back of the flag. Signals, ship, and interference follow me. This proves that hard guys better watch out when there's a good magician around, or else they will get bats in the belfry. And the moral of this story is like this. A poor because honest citizen can practically always marry the king's daughter and live happily ever after, if he knows the right people.
America, industrial miracle of the century. From all the states flow bounteously the products of forest, mine, and field. From her workshops pour all the needs of modern living. By air, land, and water, these treasures of enterprise are sent out to every point of the compass. No job is too big for American industry. Nothing is too small for the best in materials and workmanship. Look back a few generations and realize the advances America has made. Articles once were wrought by single pairs of hands with crude implements in quality that varied with the knowledge, skill, and honesty of the individual. Today, able workmen with wonderful machinery do better work at lower cost, while advancing mechanical arts have brought new ease to the multitudes. Where the plodding workmen of former times labored alone, with neither guidance nor help, meeting no set standard of quality, industrial America marshals resources, science, and power unlimited to bring a quality product within the reach of millions. 40 spoke holes at one operation. Jobs formerly tedious and uncertain are now done in the wink of an eye with gigantic tools which the old-time craftsman never knew. The old-time craftsman's tools were 1,000 times slower, his skill 1,000 times less accurate. The hand of today's workman and the performance of his machine are guided in the smallest details by science. The greatest American manufacturers maintain vast libraries of technical books, records, and informational data. This earnest effort to make every possible improvement applies to even the smallest things. The greatest example of America's success is the motor car of quality. Any place on earth, you will find America's automobiles serving the people. Even in Borneo, the home of the legendary wild man, although New York is 12,000 miles away. All over the world, the automobile is relieving beasts of burden. People have learned what smooth, powerful, and quiet transportation means in enjoyment and health. On the smooth surfaces of boulevards in many cities, scenes like this are duplicated every minute. Millions know intimately interesting places, like the Grand Canyon, which were names only to the house-tied generations of former times. Farms are brought close to the cities, and families in the country keep in touch with all that is doing. The American farmer enjoys the world's highest standard of country living. Scientific production of quality, backed by immense resources, greater than any other in the world, have earned a public preference unequaled. It is no accident that the low-priced modern six-cylinder automobile has been elected as the world's most popular car. Over 8 million buyers have recognized the great American value and have chosen for their own the motor car now bought by more people than any other. Weighing the value, they not only secure better performance, convenience, and luxury for themselves, but they also supply the incentive and resources to make possible even greater values for tomorrow. These motor cars furnish lifeblood to all American industry. The automobile consumes over 15% of all steel produced, 1/2 of all malleable iron, over 2/3 of all plate glass, over 1/5 of all hardwood lumber, over 14% of all cotton, 1/4 of all lead, 1/3 of all nickel, and almost 4/5 of all rubber, to say nothing of paying the railroads hundreds of millions of dollars a year for carrying thousands of carloads of freight. General Motors makes almost half of all motor cars, and the largest member of the General Motors family, Chevrolet, is the largest maker of automobiles in the world. An ever-mounting call for raw materials is sent forth by the demand for complete modern transportation. Purchases of the finest materials are made in tremendous quantities from mines, forests, and fields in every region of the United States. In steady stream, millions upon millions of dollars in payment go back to support miners, producers, farmers, and makers of supplies. Power, water power, Coal, and plenty of it, is purchased to keep the far-flung factories going. Timber, from silent forests that spread over the nation's mountain slopes, selected logs in enormous quantities are rafted down great rivers and carried onward by rail as well as water. All markets must be scoured to find materials that meet quality standards from which there must be no deviation. The purchase of all these supplies is the world's biggest shopping job. No manufacturer in the world uses so much iron and steel as the makers of the great American value. But materials in the rough need the touch of skilled workmen and precision machinery to shape them for service. Machines that work with the exactness of a watch cut out such wonderful parts as gears for the Chevrolet Synchro Mesh transmission. This wonderful machine cuts the gear teeth perfectly and stops of its own accord just when the job is finished. This makes possible low cost and brings to the man of modest means all the advantages of fine car transportation. After every cutting, inspections are made. Gauges that test the gears in final inspections are themselves tested regularly. Every synchro mesh gear must mesh perfectly. Demand for six-cylinder transportation requires the biggest drop forge plant in the world. Furnaces bring steel to white heat, ready for the powerful drop hammers that pound them into shape. A hammer that weighs 120 tons. Every time it comes down, 58,000 pounds of pressure come with it. The Chevrolet forge plant at Detroit is the best equipped in the world. 200 hammers and forging machines use 1,800 tons of raw material a day. The biggest motor plant in the world is needed to make the million six-cylinder engines demanded annually by the American people. In the production of the hundreds of parts necessary to make this modern, low-priced, quality motor, every point is protected by scientific checking. The test gauges used for checking crankshafts test both the balance of the crankshaft and also all machined surfaces. But in the making of this great car, more than machinery is needed. Machines grow constantly more intricate. They need the watchful guidance of well-paid operators. And every man earns more because of the machine that helps him in his work. Day by day, mechanical giants like these open their jaws and give forth the product for which the engineering genius of men has fashioned them. This automatic frame assembly plant is all one great machine extending over 4 city blocks and electrically controlled throughout. Steel plates are put in at one end and assembled frames come out the other. These factories and machines are only giant tools under the control of many thousands of men whose daily work is giving the public better performance, new luxury, and greater convenience in transportation. No manufacturer pays his workers more than the makers of Chevrolet. Whole towns, even cities, have been built around its factories. Let's take a look at some more of these machines and their guardians. Machines that are doing work which men alone could never do. What do you think of a press that weighs 456,000 pounds, pressing at one operation the whole side panel of an automobile in one piece? Safeguards are thrown about every operation and movement. This mighty monster cannot move until its master puts both hands on the safety bar. Plain sheets of steel under this 300,000-pound monster's grasp assume the exact shape wanted in half a second. Think how long it would take the workmen of a few generations back to turn out even one of these body parts. Fenders, stamped out in one piece from the highest quality heavy gauge steel. This fender press weighs 200,000 pounds. It stands 22 feet high and 10 feet below the ground. it exerts a pressure of 300,000 pounds. The great American value calls for the never-ceasing watchfulness of experienced workmen. Cylinders must meet the exacting standards of accurate test gauges. Many parts conform to measurements within the 1,000th part of an inch. For inspecting the great American six-cylinder motor, gauges are used that test as closely as 1/10 of the thickness of a human hair. Transmissions are assembled with extraordinary care. Inspectors watch and check each operation. Millions of six-cylinder owners have learned what precision machining means in adding to the life of the car. In the transmission system, exhaustive tests and experiments are made to secure perfection. The Chevrolet Synchro Mesh transmission must be checked for silence at every speed. Such parts as crankshaft bearings, valves, and cylinders get special inspection all along the line. Inspectors check inspectors, and other inspectors check them. Every part must be made right and put together right. Valves are formed in machines that never vary their movements the smallest fraction of an inch. Scientific research in the interest of the car owner is constantly discovering new ways to better the product. Engine valves of pure silichrome steel are made by a special and exclusive process. Every working day, 360,000 small parts are painstakingly inspected by experts using test gauges and checking devices. Hundreds, thousands of checks and double checks. Highest quality is the goal of America's largest motor car manufacturer. 5,162 inspections are made on the six-cylinder Chevrolet motor alone. On the general assembly line, out of every 10 workmen, 3 are inspectors, ready with a quick eye and special knowledge to find any flaw which might exist in materials or workmanship. To produce 1 million of these cars each year, America's greatest industries must play an important part. Vast forests of the finest hardwoods contribute to the making of stylish Chevrolet Fisher bodies, the strongest in the world. And throughout the great forest comes the lumberman's cry of timber as the trees come crashing down.
The way is long, the night is dark, but I don't mind, 'cause a happy lark will be singing at the end of the road. I can't go wrong, I must go right, I'll find a way, 'cause the guiding light will be shining at the end of the road. There may be thorns in my path, but I'll wear a smile, 'cause in a little while my path will be roses. The rain may fall from up above, but I won't stop, 'cause the ones I love will be waiting at the end of the road.
To a surprising degree, today's automobile bodybuilders follow the traditions and ideals of the men who wrought by hand traveling carriages for kings and nobles, to which have been added new standards of comfort and utility. When it was found that hardwood combined with steel gave the strongest and best body construction, the method was perfected and adopted for the modern low-priced automobile, as well as for all the highest-priced cars. When steel is reinforced with hard wood, you have the strongest and safest automobile body. Over 10,000 pounds of leather, 200 million pounds of wood, 54 million pounds of glass products, 3 million pounds of wool, and 52 million pounds of the South's best cotton are used in these bodies. Besides the products of timber forests, the quality car body demands the finest of plate glass. Brought to a white heat in the roaring furnaces, some holding 20 pots of molten glass at one time. Only America can produce this fine, clear glass in the quantities and quality needed. Acres upon acres of perfect plate glass are made daily to shield the car rider from cold, snow, and rain. To the casting table, where molten glass becomes clear and even plate. Glass as few outsiders ever see it. And here is the funniest industrial operation in America. Pressing out the air bubbles underneath the glass. The march of the wooden soldiers. Watch the China doll on the right. A solution kept at even temperature aids in polishing the surface to give the undistorted vision of the famous Fisher windshield and clear window glass. Great vacuum cups, like the tentacles of an octopus, reach down and grasp the panes of finished plate glass and carry them away to be cut to size. Here at Miami, Florida, tests are constantly being made, exposing Duco, wood, and metal surfaces to all weather to check the wearing qualities. Exposure is made in a tropical climate, in the humidity of salt sea air, in the burning sun, in soot, wind, and rain. Wonderful advances in the fineness and durability of finish have been made. Not content with what seems ample assurance of the enduring lustrous quality of genuine Duco. Some of these Duco panels are left in the open for years, constantly examined very closely for effects of exposure. All of this is done to produce the brightest and most lasting finish to meet the demands of every climate. How long will chromium plate, nickel, and copper wear? Tests tell the tale. How long will wood stand up under all sorts of exposure? The facts are found here. Now let's go to the sunny south and listen to the songs of the darkies as the cotton crop is gathered.
I hear them angels calling loud, keep in the middle of the road. They's waiting there in a great big crowd, keep in the middle of the road. I see them stand around the big white gate, traveling along for it gets too late. It ain't no use for to sit and wait, just keep in the middle of the road. Children, keep in the middle of the road. Children, keep in the middle of the road. Don't you turn to the right, don't you turn to the left, just keep in the middle of the road. I hear them angels calling loud, keep in the middle of the road. They's waiting there in a great big crowd, keep in the middle of the road. I see them stand around the big white gate, traveling along for it gets too late. It ain't no use for to sit and wait, just keep in the middle of the road. Children, keep in the middle of the road. Children, keep in the middle of the road. Don't you turn to the right, don't you turn to the left, just keep in the middle of the road. I hear them angels calling loud, keep in the middle of the road. They's waiting there in a great big crowd, keep in the middle of the road. I see them stand around the big white gate, traveling along for it gets too late. It ain't no use for to sit and wait, just keep in the middle of the road. right, don't you turn to the left, just keep in the middle of the road.
Purchased every year by Chevrolet, vast quantities of cotton make their way from the southern fields to give modern traveling luxury to the motorist. And as comfort is an important item, this cotton must be the pick of the crop. 22 cotton states share in the proceeds from every sale of the great American value in automobiles.
When day is done and shadows fall, I dream of you. When day is done, I think of all the joys we knew. And yearning, returning to hold you in my arms. Won't go love, I know love, without you night has lost its charms. When day is done and grass is wet with twilight's blue, my lonely heart is sinking with a song. Although I miss your tender kiss the whole day through, I miss you most of all when day is done.
What's behind the bright lights of the sky signs? Here's the biggest one of them all. Let's take it apart and see what makes it click. A regular forest of globes. Enough steel for a skyscraper. And that's what it is. 23 stories high. By day, this sparkling giant of the night needs a lot of care. What are those things up there? Flies? No, sir. They're the men behind the bright lights. Sign monkeys who scramble about this sky alphabet as easy as A, B, C. They're a hard-working crew who shinny up and down a lot of ropes to be sure that every one of these millions of lights will keep on duty through the night. You have to know your ropes to get anywhere in this contraption. A bosun chair it's called. And it's just like those the sailors use when they repair the rigging on a boat. If your feet don't get mixed up in starting, you're okay. There is a knack to this. Like picking flowers in a glass garden. And the bigger the garden, the more men it takes to keep them all in bloom. Just a good day's work for new globetrotters. Such a business. But all those little lights must twinkle brightly in the night sky. This moving sign is called a motograph. There are more than 8,000 lights in this one, and with a life of only 6 to 8 months to a globe, rarely a day passes without 30 or 40 having to be replaced. No, his knees aren't shaking, that's the wind. Hardly any superstition among these fellows. Cat's feet are a lot more help than rabbit's feet. Of course, in a 40 or 50 mile an hour gale, there's no 3 on a match. Well, after all, a fella can fall only once, they say. Once he gets going, there's nothing he can do about it. So why worry? But the sign monkeys are only a part of the crew it takes to keep the bright lights bright. An electrical engineer is always on the job. And what a break they give him. He rates an elevator. Going up? Call your floor. 15th, please, electrical goods and glassware. Look in this control room. 100 things to watch all at one time. This is the flasher. It controls the lights that move around the big circle. The flasher is simply a rotating drum. On the face of this drum are what are known as contact plates. Metal strips or brushes along the side are lined up opposite the contacts on the drum. Each contact and its brush controls a group of lights on the sign. Naturally, the more contacts and brushes there are, turning groups of lights on and off, the more combinations we'll have. The flasher control has 305 separate contacts, the largest one in the world. Here is the machine that controls the clock hands, and it has kept the clock in perfect time for over a year without a slip. This is the control for the moving motograph. You want to know how it works? Well, every light bulb connects by a wire to a small contact point or brush. The tip of the brush presses against a copper plate, and the return wire carries electricity through the plate, brush, and wire to light the lamp. A strip of paper inserted between the copper plate and the brush stops the flow of electricity, and the lights go out. But wherever a hole in the paper lets the brush touch the copper plate, electricity flows through again and lights the bulb. No matter how many light bulbs and brushes are connected, each of them operates the same. This is a motograph sign panel studded with thousands of light bulbs. And this is the contact board on the motograph control, carrying thousands of brushes. Each light bulb on the sign panel connects to a brush on the contact board. A copper plate is hinged to the contact board, and a wire goes to the plate. As the copper plate is pressed against the brushes, electricity passes from the plate through the brushes and wires to the lights, and they all go on. If a strip of paper is passed between the copper plate and the brushes, the lights will all go out. But wherever holes in the paper permit any brushes to touch the copper plate, the lights connected to these brushes will go on. The message is punched in a roll of heavy paper, like a player piano roll. When the paper travels between the brushes and the copper plate, different groups of lights on the sign panel flash on and off. And when running, makes you think the lights are moving when they're not. Now, let's have another look at the motograph control. These wires leading from the lights all connect with the brushes at the back of the contact board. The paper carrying the motograph message is put between the brushes and the copper plate door. Then the plate goes against the paper and the brushes are clamped into place. The rest of the paper record is put on rollers so it will run through the motograph smoothly. The switch is turned on, the motograph goes into action, and the animated message is flashed across the display. And so, clambering over the face of this giant of the night, the man behind the bright lights has only to be a combination engineer, electrician, strongman, juggler, and the man on the flying trapeze. Anyhow, there's very little traffic up here. Just think of the poor pedestrians down there, dodging back and forth among those cars. What chances people do take. A fellow is certainly a lot safer up here.
Well, this business of skywriting is simple enough, but of course there's a knack to it, same as anything else. Some folks learn quickly, and some have to give up after years of trying. I suppose there's only about a dozen smoke riders in the country. Mechanically, it's not so complicated. Step up here and I'll show you. See this little trigger here? That's a part of the pen we write with. When the trigger is pulled back, it opens a valve which permits chemicals to shoot out into the exhaust pipe. The exhaust pipe, being just about red hot, heats up the chemicals and makes the smoke you see from the ground. The tanks in the cockpit have to carry about 400 pounds of smoke oil. When we have to write long sentences, we use 2 planes. In our team, we have 3 planes working together. Well, we're off. Switch off. Switch off. Contact. Contact.
Of course, it's all in the viewpoint. The planes must be light and fast so they can be easily maneuvered. They've got to be quick on the climb. About 2 2 miles up, most of the riding is done. At that height, the wind is steady. In a gentle breeze, words will drift 10 or 20 miles before they break up. And the writing is done horizontally, the way you'd write on a desk, and not up and down as it appears from the ground. To make it trickier, they have to write backwards or upside down, depends on how you look at it. So it will be right side up to you on the ground. When he writes it, this is the way it looks to the skyrider. And this is what happens when 3 smoke riders go into action at once. They've got to give each other elbow room. But then, it's a pretty big slate. Phew! Looked like a collision that time. Had to be mighty close timing on that one. But when you get around under it, it begins to make sense. To make it a little bit easier, they have the words already written out, upside down, on the instrument board. But they've also got to keep their eyes on all those dials and instruments and smoke gauges while they're using the sky as their billboard. And smoke riding's got to be done right the first time. No erasing up here in the air. They've got to travel fast. Even a short word means a 15 to 20 mile trip. And it's nothing to turn around and go back 2 or 3 miles to cross your T's. To stand the terrific strain of turning and twisting, the planes have to be strong, yet capable of a cruising speed of over 120 miles an hour. Skywriting must be done into the wind, so the letters won't spread too much. And out of the sun, so folks watching won't have the glare in their eyes. Chaps have to do about all the stunts known to aviation to make all those little turns and twists. Vertical banks. Loops. And Immelman turns. Calls for pretty good pilots and sharp eyes to follow them. But when the weather is right and they've finished a good job, the smoke riders get a big thrill and enough satisfaction to make up for all the duds and floaters that result from wind and clouds. A human bumblebee buzzes across the sky. 1,000,000 cubic feet of smoke left hanging in the blue each minute like a long white rope. But remember, there are a lot of people looking over your shoulder, so don't start writing love letters in the sky. Gasoline. Liquid power to run millions of automobiles everywhere. Yet, how many know what happens to the gas after it is poured into the gas tanks? Or realize the care that motor car engineers have taken to give each drop an equal chance to do its duty? Gasoline is powerful, but each drop can give a 100% account of himself only when he finds the most efficiently designed gasoline system to help him along his journey. For a successful life, every drop of gasoline depends entirely upon what happens to him after he gets in the swim. Ah, a nice one. Let's go after that drop of gasoline. So this is what the inside of the gas tank looks like. All right, we'll have to dive too. Here goes. No, this isn't the water main. It's the gas line from the tank to the engine. It's a good thing it's cool in this gas line. If it ever got warm, the gasoline would form vapor, and the pressure would hold the gas back in the tank. But we won't get stuck because this pipe is on the right side of the car, while the hot exhaust is far over on the other side. This is the gasoline pump that's been pulling the gasoline along all this time. Well, here we are in the little glass bowl below the gasoline pump. It's made out of glass, so the owner can easily see any sediment collecting on the bottom and have it removed whenever necessary. Stop long here. Guess the only place we can get out is through that screen up there. And is that going to be tough? The holes are certainly small. 14,000 of these tiny holes to the square inch keep dirt from reaching the carburetor. Even water can't get through this screen. Whoa, he seems to be stuck. Must be a bit of dirt clinging to him. But as soon as it comes off, he'll get through all right. There, he made it. The pump is a trusty friend of the gasoline. Always supplies just the right amount. Whenever the car is going uphill or makes a sudden burst of speed, the pump automatically works harder. But we've got to keep moving on to the carburetor. We just came through the needle valve that lets the gasoline into the carburetor. That is the float on top of the gasoline. It controls the needle valve, keeping just the right amount of gas here in the bowl of the carburetor. Hey, there goes our drop again. He's going down through the metering jet at the bottom, but he's still in the carburetor. How's that for wind? It roars through the carburetor, sometimes at a speed as high as 800 miles an hour to vaporize the gasoline. That funnel above and the other one below are called Venturi tubes. They control the speed and direction of this hurricane of air. 3 tubes in this carburetor keep raw gasoline from getting into the engine. An important reason why the 6 cylinders of this engine run on a very small amount of gasoline. But look, there's our drop over there again. Say, he's getting bigger. He's being mixed with air. He'll grow up to be about 17 times his original size, so he can do his best when he gets into the cylinder. Right down to the manifold that distributes the gasoline to the cylinders. Ouch! We're standing on the hot spot. All the drops mixed with enough air are floating right on past. The others stop here to be vaporized. This manifold heater cuts down waste and lets each drop of gasoline do its best. Here we go down the manifold. Gasoline is whirled through the manifold to keep the mixture uniform, speeded up in one place and slowed down in another, so the same amount of gas gets into each one of the cylinders. These are the valves that control the gas going into the cylinders. These big intake valves certainly make it easy for gas to get into the cylinder. No crowding, no pushing, no waste. Important for gasoline economy. There's the spark plug up there, just in the right place to burn all this gasoline. And here comes that great big piston. There's the exhaust valve opening up. And here comes the piston again. Lucky they made the exhaust valve large, too, so we can get out in a hurry. There goes the ghost of our drop of gasoline. Thanks to the engineers, he's given a perfect account of himself. He has led a more fortunate life than lots of other drops. Of course, every drop must go from the tank to the exhaust, but they don't all have the economy adventures met by every drop of gas which goes down this gasoline trail.
If you've ever taken a flopper in a pool, you know it feels like hitting something hard. Every good diver knows you must hit the water right or it won't get out of your way. You must make your dive so as to cut the resistance. Just as a fish moves around without noticing the ocean, we live near the bottom of a great ocean of air. And although 100 times thinner than water, air has a force in motion that is enormous. Air offers a lot of resistance to anything going through it. However, nature makes it possible for birds to fly through the air at speeds that seem out of proportion to the size of their muscles. Science has found that this bird speed is a matter of shape as well as strength. The streamlines of birds make a little power go a long way. With this in mind, engineers study the resistance air offers to moving shapes. Since the earliest study of streamlines, wind tunnels have been used to find out what happens when an object goes through the air. A wind tunnel is simply a long tube with a fan or powerful blower at one end. A stream of air is blown through the tunnel at varying speeds. In some tunnels, up to 120 miles per hour. Small models are placed in the wind stream and the action of the air currents is observed. Whirls and eddies in the air currents around the models are studied. And the amount of resistance or drag is measured by sensitive instruments. In order to obtain a permanent record of resistance offered by various shapes, liquid is used instead of air, and its action recorded by a motion picture camera. The paddle wheel, powered by a motor, draws the liquid through this center passage and sends it around the outer passages. Slots are used to eliminate whirls at the turns, and create an area of even flow. An object is placed in the liquid. Aluminum dust is added so that we can see clearly what happens to the current. Any form cuts through the liquid as it would through air. This shape is not streamlined. As the liquid strikes the front or leading edge, pressure is built up which causes resistance. Then, as it rolls off the rear, it is thrown into spins or eddies which create a suction behind the body. Regardless of shape, some resistance is unavoidable. As the liquid goes by the shape, its direction of flow is changed, and this change of direction wastes power. By rounding off the corners, this change of direction is made more gradual, so the amount of effort is decreased and resistance is cut down. Making the shape longer and thinner tends to cut down resistance. This decreases the violence of the eddies and reduces the suction in the rear. With an even thinner shape, the liquid flows more easily and there are fewer eddies at the rear. A streamlined shape with blunt nose and tapering rear eases a hole with the least resistance and brings the liquid together at the rear with the least disturbance. The ideal streamline follows a strict geometric design which engineers call the parabola. The length should be just about 3 times the greatest width. Such streamlining makes it easier for an object to get through the air by reducing wind resistance. The higher the speed, the more it helps. Any automobile traveling through the air meets the problem of wind resistance, so engineers set about applying the principles of streamlining to the automobile. And by rounding the contours and tapering the rear, have smoothed out the flow of air around the body of the modern motor car and smoothed out eddies at the rear. Of course, to a bird, cars today might seem already well streamlined. But as seen by a worm, the modern motor car is anything but streamlined. Yet the bottom of a motor car represents about 20% of the surface and sets up considerable wind resistance. The development of more complete streamlining for motor cars will be the problem of engineers of tomorrow. Someday, this problem will finally be solved. Sometime in the future, the completely streamlined torpedo car may come into use. Elevated highways, wide and level, may let us go 120 miles an hour. But such a torpedo car on our streets today would be entirely impractical. However, practical streamlining has been applied with success to the finest motor cars today, with many additional advantages. The streamlines of the new turret top give greater strength to the body of the car than the old box-like construction of yesterday. The slanting windshields and windows cut down glare from rear and sides and make safer driving. Streamlined fenders enclose the wheels more completely and help to keep the car clean. And they protect the wheels from force of strong winds, making the steering easier. Sloping rear panels allow for more tire and luggage space. These modern streamlines round out all details and absorb them into a good design with new beauty and dignity of appearance. This practical streamlining brings to the new automobile increased comfort, quiet, convenience, safety, and beauty. Practical streamlining brings a modern motor car into step with modern airspeed styling, which has real economy and efficiency.
Many people fish with a single hook and line. By this method, however, they can only catch one at a time. Long ago, commercial fishermen learned to locate whole schools of fish drop a net around them, and draw them in by the thousands. The mass method is the profitable one. Many farmers use a single plow. It is effective when you have only a small acreage to till. Farmers with thousands of acres to cultivate use great gang plows to turn many furrows at one time. In modern agriculture, machine methods are used through the whole cycle of farming. Mass farming is economical farming. In the early days of the automobile business, making a car was a slow, laborious, and expensive job, one car at a time. But today, with modern production methods, we make thousands of cars in the time formerly required to make one. Using the great principle of standardization, which has made possible mass manufacturing, direct mass selling has taken those parts of a sale which are the same for every prospect and is handling them on a mass production basis. Direct mass selling is as practical as mass fishing, as logical as mass plowing. It is doing for retail selling what mass production has done for manufacturing. Thousands of shoppers wanting thousands of things, and many manufacturers competing with each other to satisfy them. Manufacturers depend on advertising to make an impression on this market, and on retail outlets with salesmen to sell the goods. All manufacturers have the advantage of both these methods, but retail salesmen cannot reach all prospects with a full explanation and understanding of the features of a product. All automobile manufacturers have advertising, all manufacturers have retail outlets, and all have salesmen. And this is the job we were asking our retail salesman to do. We expected him to sell every prospect: the Chevrolet institution, emergency performance, engineering features, manufacturing efficiency, durability and dependability, economy, appraisal, price, appearance, ordinary performance, and close the deal. Certainly we were asking our salesman to do more than any salesman could be expected to do. But remember, there are some of these things only the salesman can handle. Every good salesman is qualified to meet and handle any question on appearance. He is in the best position to demonstrate the car's ordinary performance, and only the salesman can handle price, appraisal, and close the deal. But we must help the salesman to handle all these other elements, because any one of them may be the determining factor in the sale. We can and do help him with advertising, the most powerful advertising in the industry. But competitors advertise too, with clever phrases that cloud the real issues, and with claims our advertising cannot handle nor effectively disprove. And the best of salesmen can reach and do all of this selling work with only a limited number of people. That was the situation in the automobile business until March 11, 1935. On that date, we introduced direct mass selling. With this new method, we are bridging the gap between advertising and retail selling, beginning where advertising leaves off and continuing to where the salesman can and will go on. With direct mass selling, we are going into the dealer's community and reaching the young people of America in the high schools and universities who have so much influence in deciding what car the family will buy. We are going into the organized group and all classes of club meetings and reaching the influential business and professional men who have the money to buy our merchandise. We are going into the great factories, mills, and industrial organizations and reaching thousands of men and women on their payrolls, presenting a strong selling message which is winning the esteem and goodwill of industrial America. We are going into the community theaters in selected areas, reaching entire families in the dealer's community with entertaining pictures that give them an educational selling on exclusive Chevrolet engineering features. This completes the circle of community influences built up about the dealership through our selling work done in the dealer's neighborhood schools, selling work done among the employees of the industrial organizations, selling work done in the family showings at the community theaters. All of these factors working together are building up influences in the community which no dealer can create for himself, bringing complete and convincing selling presentations direct to buyers and to those who influence buying decisions. Now here is the way direct mass selling actually works. We have gone under the hood and into the heart of the engine to sell the hidden values which are responsible for the superior performance of Chevrolet,
so that the engine can develop its full power. And another thing, with the hot burn gases going out near the spark plug, that portion of the combustion chamber gets hotter than the rest. So when fresh gas comes in, it is quickly heated and ignites the instant the spark plug fires.
We have reached into the car and pulled out knee action, throwing it upon a screen 12 feet high where everybody can see it, understand exactly how it works, and why it is such a great improvement.
Now that the front springs are made just as soft as those in the rear, they don't have anything to do except make the roads smooth and the passengers comfortable.
We have gone down under the car and uncovered Chevrolet's perfected hydraulic brakes and made plain and understandable just what they mean in safety to the driver.
We get rid of more heat, and the more heat we can get rid of, the better the brake.
We have taken the audience into parts of the car where they never could go and have shown them Chevrolet's greater advances in engineering design. Mass selling has told the story of Chevrolet's extra values and is selling those things the salesman cannot be expected to sell to millions of buyers and those who influence buying decisions. Mass selling has told the Chevrolet story with newsreels.
Water from hundreds of wells, operated by sturdy automobile engines, pumping 1,200 gallons of water every minute, day and night, with never a stop.
Without efficient shovels like this and sturdy trucks to carry away the rock, many more years would be required to complete the building program.
And that makes this automobile the only one in existence with a double turret top.
With institutionals. And with thrilling, dramatic demonstrations of spectacular emergency performance. Right now, while we sit in this meeting, mass selling using all the spectacular resources of sound pictures and animated cartoons in color is helping to sell great masses of people in the way they like to be sold.
There, miss. You see the heterodynes are feeding back into the stimulus reaction activators, causing non-snaps of the motor control resistor units.
Oh, that's good.
No, lady, that's bad. But your regenerative circuits are tuned asynchronously, and that causes concatenation in the intermediate amplifiers.
Well, that's bad, isn't it?
No, that's good. From now on, I don't think there'll be the slightest trouble with your robot. Your domestic problems are completely solved.
Well, thank you very much.
That's perfectly all right. And if there's anything else you want to know about your robot, don't hesitate to give us a ring. Good day.
Rollo, answer the door.
Sign here.
Lars, Rollo, fix. Yes, ma'am. Rollo, get.
Yes, Rollo the robot, the chromium-plated butler, is just a daydream after all. But not so Rollo's little brother and sister robots, the millions of small mechanical servants that never ask for afternoons off, the amazing machines and gadgets that almost seem to think for themselves. The tiny clockwork brains and heat regulators on our kitchen stoves apparently do almost everything except read the cookbook. Thinking machines like this keep golden brown slices of toast from turning into slabs of charcoal and keep the coffee hot until we're ready to start dunking. Then there's a tea kettle that's been trained never to boil dry. When the water is gone, the kettle simply pulls out its own attachment plug. And here's a gadget that ought to rate a bow from every dog in the country. A Fido feeder that never forgets when the pup is dining home alone and the rest of the family is dining out. What's more, it tells him when to come and get it. In offices and schoolrooms, too, robots have learned to turn on the lights. This little electric eye measures the amount of daylight coming in the windows. When the light level outside drops below the requirement for good visibility, this robot throws a switch and the first bank of lights goes on. No robot machine has ever been accused of being absent-minded or careless at its work. Here, a robot that never sleeps nor winks nor looks out the window stands guard over the men who work at this giant press. As long as the robot can see the man, the press won't budge an inch, and that's mighty important on a big job like this. Did you ever hear of anyone getting his lap caught in an elevator door? That can't happen here, because as long as there's anything in the way, this door can't close. Step back, please. There's plenty of room in the rear of the car. All right, then, don't step back. Just take a deep breath and hang on to yourself. One little robot, for example, always remembers to serve drinks when it sees anyone walking around with a thirst. A beam of light is aimed across the fountain and into an electric eye. When the beam of light is broken by a solid object, such as this head, the electric eye control opens the faucet and there's your drink. This particular device is an automatic fire sprinkler. Someday, maybe someone will invent a robot that can take a joke. Some robots have even learned to fly. Tiny automatic brains in giant airliners, sensitive to the slightest change in balance or direction, relieve the busy pilots of the job of keeping the wings level, the nose on the horizon, and the plane headed in the right direction. Don't look now, but this motor car is simply full of robots. In the carburetor is a diet specialist, a brainy collection of jets and valves and floats that serve a health menu of gasoline calories and fresh air vitamins to the engine, a menu that varies with every change in speed or load. The engine likes its meals served not too hot and not too cold. So in the intake manifold, another mastermind with a nervous system sensitive to heat uses hot exhaust gases to warm the mixture before it goes into the engine. Step right up close to the platform and see the Siamese robots. These robots attached to the distributor are always worrying about the spark in the engine. One is sure that the spark ought to be advanced. The other is equally sure that it ought to be retarded just a trifle. But they never argue. Each takes his turn according to the speed and load, and between them, they manage to stage a grand performance every time they go on the road. One little robot, a very small but intelligent brain, sits up back of the engine in the voltage regulator and keeps close tabs on the generator to see that the generator makes enough current to keep the battery fully charged, but not too full. And still another deep thinker rides way up in front. Its job is to keep water from cooling off in the radiator until the engine is warmed up to a good working temperature. Then, in the vacuum power gear shift, there's a robot strongman who thrives on almost nothing at all. With a bit of a vacuum, this sturdy fellow can almost shift for himself if we'll just tell him what we want him to do. Robots have even taken up the art of dial twisting in our radios. All we need to do is push the button and listen. Driving wouldn't be half so much fun if we didn't have that phantom crew of intelligent robots to help us. Every day in our homes and offices, as well as in our motor cars, hundreds of these little robots are doing more things for us than we realize, taking care of the routine tasks and leaving us free to live and work and play in greater ease and comfort and safety.